welcome back to Ball with Y'all. My name is Shawn Johnson, and I'm here with Mr. Zach Gray. Zach, how are you doing today?
I am doing mighty fine. It's a Thursday afternoon. We got the NFL starting tonight. We got a great slate of college football games and NASCAR playoffs coming up this weekend. I am happy.
There you go. That's all it takes.
That's right.
All right. So we've got a jam-packed show, as always, to go into your weekend. So glad you chose to join us, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, or on Breaker, or on YouTube at BWY Productions. Wherever you're joining us, so glad you chose just to spend a little bit of your time here with us. Zach, what do you say? Let's get into our first segment. Let's crack it open.
Let's do it.
So earlier in the week, on, I believe, Tuesday, we had the AP poll come out. The first poll here in the regular season. Of course, we were operating off of the preseason poll previously. I guess technically this is called week 2, but I don't really consider it this. This is the official.
I consider this week 1.
Yep, this is very much week 1.
We've actually seen these teams play. We can rank them now.
I would tend to agree. So we saw a lot of movement. Zach, want to get your thoughts. Who did you think, what were your initial takeaways? Who do you think it should be ranked higher, lower? Some teams you thought were snubbed? What do you think?
USC at 10 makes no sense to me. Why is USC at 10? They were losing to Rice.
They beat Rice.
They beat Rice. I get that. And by a lot. But also, too, I mean, let's look at the Pac-12 as a whole, right? Oregon and Utah. Oregon got blown out by Georgia. Florida dismantled Utah to the point where they could walk away with that game. And USC wasn't even the best team in that conference. So how is USC going to be a top 10 team in the conference, or in the country, when they're clearly not even going to be able to compete with anybody outside their conference all year long? So that one, a little bit overranked for me there. Underranked. I thought Pitt should have jumped up.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they win that tough game against West Virginia. And I don't know. I like the Pitt Panthers this year. I thought they looked the best out of all the ACC teams this year, or this week.
That speaks volumes.
Yes, it does.
Because that was not a good look for them.
I think West Virginia is going to surprise some people this year.
JT Daniels at quarterback.
I'm just saying. How about you?
I love seeing Tennessee get into the top 25. I've mentioned numerous times that I think the Volunteers will earn for a big season. I think they'll probably win 9 or 10 games this year. So looking good for them. Love seeing Wake Forest at 23. Not that really means a whole lot at this stage. We are getting to see Sam Hartman come back this week, which of course we will preview that game against the Vanderbilt Commodores later in the show. Was a little bit surprised to see Pitt not drop just a little bit. I think it's fine that they're in the top 20, but makes a lot of sense that they're there. Expected them to see drop a little bit potentially. Surprised not to see Penn State ranked. Yeah. I was rather impressed by Penn State, their win against, was it Purdue?
Yes.
On Thursday of last week. Surprised they weren't in the top 25. I mentioned earlier in one of our previous shows that I thought Penn State belonged in the top 25 already. Surprised they're not there yet. And also kind of shocked to see Houston hold on to the last spot. They struggled mightily in their opening game, but they did pull it out in I think it was double overtime. But maybe they're in for something bigger. We just don't quite know it yet. But overall, pretty strong list. We saw Georgia get some more first-place votes, so their fans can be looking forward to perhaps a strong season there. But overall, pretty strong top 25.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, if I was going to add one more team to the list, I think Georgia should be number 1. Just because they're the defending national champs. They smoked the 11th ranked team in the country by 46. And until they're beaten, I really am a fan of having whoever won the last year be that team number 1 going into the rest of the next year, too. So, yeah, I think... Also, too, Tennessee being ranked, why? Why are they ranked?
You're not a big Tennessee fan.
No.
I mean, they beat a big program in the form of Ball State.
Oh, man, yeah, line them up. Let's see them play again. That was such a good game.
I thought it was a great game. I got to enjoy it.
What was that, 59 to 14?
Something along those lines, yeah.
59-10.
It was beautiful. Now, you mentioned Georgia losing, so they actually are going to lose this week. They're playing Samford at 4 o'clock.
Ooh, man, that's tough.
So, yeah, sorry, Georgia fans. It's over.
Put it in the L column.
Yeah, just go ahead and drop them out of the top 25. But in all seriousness, they do have a few easy games. I wouldn't say that their next toughest game probably won't come until October 29th against Florida. So
I would agree with that.
They're probably going to be up in that top range for quite some time.
Also, I just want to give a shout out to the AP voters for not feeling pressured enough to rank Texas. Because the right call is not to rank them. And you see this all the time when there's like a marquee game. And like one of the teams playing in it is a fringe top 25 team, they always end up being ranked so they can have a ranked matchup. Texas does not deserve to be ranked.
Well, and to that point, we've got 2 ranked matchups this week, and neither of them are going to be where game day is.
No.
And I understand the historical relevance of Alabama, Texas.
It's branding.
It's cool, great, and wonderful. I don't know who the guest picker is going to be at this point in time. I don't really care because it's Texas's guy anyway, or girl. I don't know.
Could be Matthew McConaughey.
Could be. I mean, that would be. We're just going back to the same place once again. But that's okay. Overall, I think we're in for a good weekend nonetheless. Again, to your point, glad that Texas is not ranked. Horns down, man.
Horns down. That's a flag. 15 yards.
Sorry, guys. I'll just leave.
It's really going to affect you guys when you're up by 38 in the third quarter.
We're going to preview that.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Slow down.
What? Do you guys even need a preview of Alabama, Texas? I'll give you a preview right now. No thanks. Check the score. Oh, wow, they won by 45. All right, continue.
All right, more on that in a bit. I guess that's a good segue. Let's get into our game picks for the weekend. I believe we've got 6 different matchups we'll go into here. We'll start off with the South Carolina Gamecocks coming off that big win against Georgia State in Week 1, where they were losing at one point in time.
They were late into the game, too, by the way.
Visiting number 16 Arkansas with KJ Jefferson and so on. They are an 8.5-point favorite. Are the Razorbacks? The over-under on that game is 53 points. Zach, what say you?
I'm going to say Arkansas covers the 8.5. Arkansas looked really good. They beat Cincinnati. Look, Cincinnati's not the same team they were last year. That's still a tough team to beat, especially week 1 of the season. Give me Arkansas covering the 8.5 and the over hitting. I'm going to go Arkansas 38-23.
Okay. I agree. Arkansas, they looked great in week 1. I think KJ Jefferson is still a top 3 SEC quarterback. Even withstanding Anthony Richardson, I still think KJ Jefferson's up there. On the Spencer Rattler side, we saw them not impress whatsoever. There was a lot of buzz going into the season here about Spencer Rattler coming in from Oklahoma. He did not impress anybody. A lot of that had to do with their offensive line, underwhelming, which you wouldn't expect their offensive line to underwhelm against Georgia State. So that was not exactly encouraging. I am still a big fan of South Carolina this year and Shane Beamer, but I think it's going to be a lot to ask them to win here. So I'll go Arkansas as well. A little bit more low scoring than yours. I'll go Arkansas 28-20, so they will just barely not cover, and the under on that game would hit.
I like it.
All right. 2 very different approaches.
We got them all. One of us is walking out here with a win.
Or half.
Unless, of course...
2 halves of us.
Yeah. So a whole one of ball with y'all.
Exactly. So some way, somehow, we'll be right. A game we mentioned earlier in the show, number 23 Wake Forest, fully stocked with Sam Hartman back at quarterback. Visiting the Vanderbilt Commodores. The Vanderbilt Commodores are a 13-point underdog at home. The over-under is 66 points. What say you, Zach?
I'm very hyped for this game. Very hyped for this game. Give me the points, man. Give me the over of 66. Give me Wake Forest covering the 13. I'm going to be a little generous with that. I do think Vanderbilt can make it a little tight early, and I hope they pull this off, for the record. But I don't see them withstanding Wake Forest's offense the entire game. Hang on to your hats. Ready?
I'm hanging on.
Okay. Give me Wake Forest 55. Vanderbilt 24.
Well, if it's any consolation, I have half of that, so that's good.
Okay, perfect.
So, like I mentioned, Sam Hartman's back at quarterback.
Yes.
Big moment there. We know that Wake Forest's offense is particularly potent, and we know that their defense is particularly suspect. They do not stop anybody defensively.
Rather sus.
Yeah. We do know, however, Vanderbilt is the only 2-0 team in the SEC.
Yeah.
Imagine saying that a month ago. Now, granted, it's Hawaii.
I would have
Elon.
believed it a month ago.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd have bought in Hawaii and Elon 2-0.
If you would have said Vanderbilt's 2-0 and I looked at their schedule and saw Hawaii and Elon, I would be like, you're not too crazy.
Now, can we talk about how Elon was a much closer game than Hawaii was?
Yeah.
I feel like that's not exactly a good indicator for our Rainbow Wager Warriors.
The Wager Warriors are wagering us into debt because they can't cover Jack. It's horrible. They need to get their stuff together. And we have to talk about that later, too, but... Gosh, I'm not looking forward to that game.
That's gonna be a good one. Now, of course, Wake Forest is a new beast compared to those two teams. Now, on the bright side, even if Vanderbilt loses this game, this does not affect my prediction of them winning the SEC East. So
correct.
I'm still on pace for that.
We only put $1,000 on that, right?
I put 15. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay.
You must have put 1,000.
Yeah, I was a little too conservative there.
I do like Vanderbilt's defense to keep this one under the total points. So again, the flip side of what you've got, but I do like Wake to get the win. I will go Wake Forest 37, Vanderbilt 24.
Low scoring affair.
Low scoring affair.
Wow.
And
they cover.
a push.
Almost.
No, it's 13.
Yeah. Almost covered.
Oh, yeah.
A push is what...
Yeah, it's essentially...
I was wrong.
It's fine.
Okay.
We'll stay in the SEC East for the next matchup. Going out of conference, though, with the number 24 Tennessee Volunteers going to visit apparently one of your favorite ACC teams, the number 17 Pittsburgh Panthers. Pittsburgh is a 6.5-point underdog at home. The over-under is 66 points. Zach, what do you got?
Definitely Pitt covering 6.5. I think Pitt just wins this game outright, honestly. And I think the over hits. I'm going to go Pitt 38-35 over Tennessee. And, hey, also, our second ACC-SEC matchup this week, too.
I love seeing these out-of-conference games.
Me, too.
These games that actually matter, have significance. It's not Alabama-Louisville. Like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, this is what college football is supposed to be about. I love this stuff. Week 2 and 3 and 4 can be great if your team schedules fun opponents.
And weren't we talking the other day? Doesn't Tennessee play Virginia Tech next year?
Yes, I believe so.
Or Virginia?
Did we talk to the audience about what I did in the car last night?
No, we'll get more on that in a second.
Let's talk about that. Well, hang on, that sounds really weird. We got to probably address that.
Yeah, we probably have to address that.
Okay, so let's clear the air here, okay? So, Shawn and I were very curious because, last week was week 1, and obviously there's always great matchups we're looking at and seeing, okay, what's the opening games of the season? What can we look forward to come, June, July, and into August? And we realized there was not a complete list of all the games for next year for week 1.
You think you'd see this on, Google somewhere?
FBS schedules.
Nobody had done it.
No.
So we said, okay, we will take it upon ourselves. Zach said, I will take it upon myself to make this list possible. And Zach, what did you do?
I wrote out and dated every single game in week 1 next year. Fun fact, there's not a single good game next year for week 1.
Nope.
And we will be releasing that list.
We will?
Before next year.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be the trailblazers.
We will be the first ones to put a comprehensive week 1 list together on the internet for college football next year.
We're trendsetters.
We're
doing things that nobody's ever done. And that's why you are here listening to us, because Ball with Y'all takes it to the next level.
You think you'd be tired after sitting in the rain and heat at a Florida Gators game for 9-10 hours?
Never.
And then driving 3 hours? Nope. Not us.
That's what we're doing in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Were you in Jacksonville at that point in time?
I don't know. I was busy.
Fair enough. So anyway, as far as my prediction with the Tennessee game.
What were you going to pick? Yeah.
So I mentioned it in passing earlier. I like Tennessee a lot this year. After watching week 1, I'm even more convinced that Tennessee will win at least 9 games. They've already got 1 under the belt, so only 8 more to go.
Oh, boy.
This game, of course, would be a huge momentum builder for that. And I was not exactly impressed by what we saw in Pittsburgh. They did survive in week 1 against a very good West Virginia team, very, very stingy West Virginia team, if you will. Keaton Slovis, he's a fine quarterback for Pittsburgh. I don't know that I trust him entirely. There's a reason that he didn't excel at USC, and I think there's a reason he's not there anymore. That said, I was pleasantly surprised to see Tennessee favored to win this game, and I'll take them to win and cover.
Oh.
And just barely the over, it seems. 41-27.
That'll get it.
Tennessee.
I like it.
Very good. All right, to a game which you touched upon earlier just a tad. Now, before I even get to who's playing, I just want to take you back to January 2010.
No.
Please.
No. Please.
Here's what was going on in the world at that point in time.
Okay.
Mike Shanahan had just been named the head coach of the Redskins. There's not even a team anymore. The Redskins don't exist anymore.
Don't exist.
Simon Cowell had just left American Idol.
Tragic.
Did you ever watch American Idol?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed. Homeschool problems.
It's a great show. He's back. He's on America's Got Talent now.
Thank God.
I
was really worried about
that. Just kind of see it in passing. Kobe Bryant became the youngest NBA player to reach 25,000 points. That was cool at that point in time.
What's he up to these days?
I think it's too soon to tell.
Yeah, that's probably too soon.
It's been about, 18, 19, 20 months? Yeah, I don't think you can say that yet.
24?
Okay. And lastly, Conan O'Brien had his last episode as the host of The Tonight Show.
That was a very quick Tonight Show stint, wasn't it?
It was.
Was it like 3 weeks?
Were you allowed to watch that? Or?
Not at the time.
Okay.
Later, I was allowed to watch reruns.
Very good.
Yeah.
He was Great comedian.
They put it on the nursing home. Right?
So that all was going on in January 2010, which was the last time that these two teams played each other. We got Texas. We got number 1 Alabama. Texas is a 20-point dog at home. The over-under is 64.5. What do you got on this game, Zach?
We're going Alabama to cover the 20, but the over not to hit.
Oh.
We're going to go 41-17.
41-17. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Life was a lot different back in 2010.
I miss it.
But I think the result here will be much of the same. I think the final of that game was at 37-21 or something along those lines. Since that national championship game, just some stats to put these two programs in perspective. Alabama, their record 151-17. Texas, 84-67. So that's good. Lots of hype on this game, of course, for good reason. Quinn Ewers is Texas's best quarterback in quite some time.
Since the guy that Alabama knocked out of the game.
Yes, since good old Colt McCoy. I only imagine if Colt McCoy had been able to finish that game. Bijan Robinson had some Heisman buzz last year. He's a great running back. But I also don't want to forget that Bijan Robinson in Texas, if you recall, had a lot of buzz going into the Arkansas game last year. And then that game pretty much killed Bijan Robinson's Heisman buzz. And it got ugly, pretty quick.
Agreed.
And I think it'll get ugly here, too. I think Alabama wins big, 48-17. And for those of you looking for a good betting pick, I was looking at the halftime spread, 13 points for the Crimson Tide. I think they'll have that.
I like that. That's a win.
That's probably better than the 20, honestly, because I'd be worried that Saban might take it easy on Sark at some point in facing his former offensive coordinator. But nonetheless, I think we both agree Alabama should come away pretty easily, and it will give you a very boring game to watch to open up your Saturday in the big noon kick slot. Moving on to some more exciting games in the evening time. A team that we saw just about 5 days ago at this point in time, the number 12 Florida Gators, which is wild to say, number 12 Florida Gators, a 5-point favorite at home, hosting the number 20 Kentucky Wildcats. The over-under is 52.5. What do you got?
Florida's covering the 5. And I like the under in this game. We're going to go 23-17.
Okay.
Florida walks out with a victory. Now, disclaimer, if Christian Rodriguez is playing for the Wildcats, he's not. But if he was, I think Kentucky wins this game. So, shame on him for whatever mistakes he made to get himself suspended, because that is a huge loss for Kentucky.
Do we know how many guys are out for Kentucky?
No. They are still so tight-lipped about that whole situation. It has something to do with academics. I think there's new rules this year where you can't disclose certain academic suspensions and whatnot. So Stoops, the coach for Kentucky, has been very tight-lipped about that, but it's pretty bad. I think they're in dire straits, honestly.
So last week, Florida was the standout team, obviously. Super impressive, most would say. And Kentucky was pretty underwhelming. They pulled away against Miami, Ohio late in that game.
Yep.
But
they covered.
They covered. So, good teams cover.
That's
great teams
cover.
Great
Good
teams
teams just win, Sean.
Great teams cover. Like you mentioned, what to watch for, all the suspended guys for the Wildcats. On the Florida side, what to watch for. I'm really interested to see how they respond after a big emotional win. And I mentioned this to you actually after the fact that I was concerned they might have a bit of a letdown this week. I'm still not fully sold on Florida. I was kind of surprised to see number 12. I was expecting maybe top 20, or high side of top 20, but number 12 is what it is. I do not know how I really feel about this one quite yet, but I do think, to your point, they'll probably pull away with Kentucky being so depleted. So I'll go Florida, winning a close one, not covering, 24-20.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
So we're kind of in agreement there.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's like our first pick that I'm beyond the Alabama game that we're kind of in agreement on.
Yes.
Good. And lastly, the game that probably should have had game day this week.
This is the game of the week.
Probably the game of the week. Number 9 Baylor and Dave Aranda, those guys, visiting number 21 BYU. The point spread is 3.5 in the favor of BYU. The over-under is 53.5. What do you got?
First off, game of the week. Secondly, future great Big 12 matchup starting next year. Third, why is this game at 10:15?
They like to make our lives hell.
Brutal. I get it's 8 o'clock, 8:15 out there, but still, that's brutal. Okay, Baylor plus 3.5. Taking that all day long. I think Dave Aranda is the most underrated coach in football, and I think Baylor walks in there and actually kind of handles BYU well, I think. I'm going to go Baylor 27-14. So the under hits and Baylor plus 3.5 covered.
So we have different scores, but basically the same result.
Okay.
So that's good. To your point, both teams, they look pretty good in week one. Now, granted, Baylor played Albany and BYU played USF, so two very high-caliber programs there. I liked what I saw out of Blake Shapen for Baylor, taking over the full-time starting spot at quarterback for the Bears. And the rushing attack wasn't really that disappointing either. It didn't really wow you a whole lot, but it wasn't disappointing to say the least. The funny thing about this game is that it, of course, doesn't really matter a whole lot for Baylor's Big 12 hopes. So they don't necessarily have to win it, but I would like to see them win it. But I mentioned that I have Baylor making the playoffs, so I kind of need them to win this game, and I think that they will, in fact, win it. I think they'll win a close one. I'll go 23-20 Bears.
I like it.
All right. And last thing before we move on to our last segment, you mentioned, of course, the Hawaii game. We'll get into our Rainbow Wager Warriors segment on the Monday show, but Zach, what is your pick for Hawaii against Michigan? For reference, Michigan at the time of recording is a 52-point favorite. The over-under is 67 in that game. What do you got?
Also, for reference, Sean's 2-0 in this segment. I'm 0-2. Not anymore. We're going Michigan not covering the 52, but the over hitting on 67.
Okay. All right. I don't know.
Can't fail me now.
I mean,
it's perfect.
Now, is that more so expecting that Michigan will put up a lot of points or that Hawaii will support?
Michigan puts up a lot of points. Hawaii gets a couple scores late. We hit that over. Michigan doesn't win by 51. I could see this game being like a 52-14 kind of thing.
Okay. And that is, in fact, well, that's not over.
I know. But, like, visualize that. Like
52-17.
52-17.
That's over.
55-17.
55-14.
No. Oh, yeah. Homeschool problems.
There's a lot of ways to get there. Not once have I touched the obvious ones. So I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here once again. The over-under on the longest touchdown play of the day is 54.5 yards.
Oh.
I'm going over on that one. I don't know what it looks like, but
You're locked and loaded.
That's just barely over the halfway over midfield. Yeah. That's pretty simple.
I like that.
I don't know who the quarter. Yeah, I love it. Right.
Good bet.
Right. Thank you. Now we'll see. Obviously, this will be the one time it doesn't hit. There'll just be like 10-yard runs.
And this will be like the one time my idiot pick actually works. I'm 0-2.
Hey, at some point you got to get right. I think it's possible.
I guess.
So we'll see how that progresses. We'll give you an update on the Monday show, of course. That'll do it for our college football projections. Let's get into NASCAR 1 to go.
White flag, report exit.
So, Zach, before we get into our pick for the big race at Kansas for the weekend, we did have some news in the NASCAR sports world related to next year's schedule and the All-Star race. Tell our listeners a little about what you took away from that news.
North Wilkesboro All-Star race. Amazing. Super excited for this. The All-Star race has been a dead event for so many years. I personally dreamed that they would have the the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro soon. That is just such a cool track. Historical, great short track action. NASCAR hit a home run with that. That was the highlight of my sports week so far. I'm so happy about that. Obviously, we'll have to see what that means for Texas, if they get 2 regular season races again, or if they're losing a race.
Yeah, well, and to that point, we know that the folks who own Texas also own North Wilkesboro. So that kind of helped that one along. We saw Kevin Harvick loved that. He went on a little bit of a Twitter, I wouldn't say tirade, but he went on a little bit of a...
He made his points.
And that was one of them. So that was good to see. I mentioned Kevin Harvick, and again, before we get into our picks for the weekend, I want to get your thoughts as well, because we kind of touched upon it on the Tuesday show. Some guys who are right above the cut line for the playoffs. We saw, I think it was Kevin Harvick being down 13 points. We saw Chastain was around 14 or so points up. Kyle Busch only being 8 points above the cut line. And then Austin Dillon being down 4. If you had to take a look at all the guys who are right around the cut line, maybe moving away from Joey Logano, maybe moving away from William Byron, Who would you be most worried about going into the weekend at Kansas?
This is going to sound surprising, especially when one of the options is Austin Dillon, who's in a hole right now. But I'm extremely worried about Kyle Busch. That race on Sunday night, the one Shawn and I were at in Darlington, that was his race to win. The amount of wind that came out of his sails when his motor blew, I'm worried about that carrying over. Kansas, one of his not his best tracks, and that team, it hasn't had winning speed in the last 3 or 4 months. If I'm a Kyle Busch fan, this is going to be a sketchy weekend. I like him at Bristol. He's got to get there, though, being to the plus side of the cut line. He can't lose any points this week, for sure.
I think to your point, I look back at times where Kyle Busch has had the speed to win a race, and then what happens afterwards. Mm-hmm. For example, I look at Vegas early in the year, a guy who he could get up there and win and does not pull it off. And then you kind of see him flake off a little bit, you know? And that's happened multiple times throughout the year. I would be concerned about Kyle Busch. I know some people have mentioned Cindric. I think Cindric's fine at this point in time.
I like Cindric to advance this round.
Yeah, he's not getting into trouble. He's got speed. He looks comfortable. I'd be adequately concerned if I was Kevin Harvick, not because obviously he can drive his way up there and other guys can wreck out or whatever else, but I don't like being in that position where you have to get the positions. He's now in the same position that Ryan Blaney was at the point of the rain delay in Daytona, basically.
True.
And which is not to say that it's not reasonable to get those 13 points or plus or 14 points, whatever it looks like. But I wouldn't necessarily be super comfortable if I was him at this point in time. Any other guys that bother you at this stage or worry you?
Well, it seems like every year there's a guy that comes out of Darlington that kind of surprises people, and they're like, well, he's actually kind of far up in the point standings. I didn't really see that coming from him coming into the playoffs. And it seems like that person always loses their standing completely after the second race in the round. For me, I think that person is Ryan Blaney. I don't see Blaney having a really good race this weekend at Kansas. And that would be the guy I'm looking to watch because you got in barely to the playoffs. You set yourself up. He is currently 20 points to the good on the cut line. I think he loses a lot of points this week and has a tough weekend next weekend at Bristol too. So I'm going to keep my eyes on Ryan Blaney this week. Could be a track he could do really well at. Could be a track that's detrimental to his season.
Oh, wow. Well, I think that's a good introduction to who we have winning the races this weekend.
Oh, do tell.
Because, no, I don't have Ryan Blaney, but I think that does, that's a nice segue. There's a lot of guys that are in the playoffs right now that have had historic success. Not historic, but historical success at Kansas. You see Kevin Harvick's done great. He's done well there. A number of other guys, some guys who, even didn't Kurt Busch win there earlier this year?
Yeah.
Of course, he's not going to be in the race, but he could have been there.
He could have.
If he didn't have the concussion. Zach, who do you have winning the race this weekend?
We are going to go with Kyle Larson.
Kyle Larson.
Kyle Larson wins it at Kansas. Almost won it there this year. Probably wins that race if he gets clear of Kurt Busch and doesn't spin out. Almost spin out. He slid for like half the back straightaway, it seemed like then. I think it's also going to be a measuring stick on the competition this week to kind of see where everybody's at. We got through Darlington. Everybody's kind of like middle. There's not really anybody that's too safe or out of it points-wise right now. Obviously, that can get more spread out this week. I think this week is the Kyle Larson party that everybody gets invited to and says, you know what, that might be the championship favorite. Chase Elliott's good. Kyle Larson might be better. I like Kyle Larson to win this weekend at Kansas.
Well, this puts us in a really awkward position.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yep. So you're riding with Kyle
Larson.
I'm riding with Chase.
Oh, man.
Elliott. Just to clarify, I can't say Chase Briscoe. He's definitely not going to
win.
The
Chases.
I think life has a funny way of swinging back in a positive direction after a disastrous swing the other way.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say that could happen this week. In 13 career races here, he's won once, has 6 top 5s and 8 top 10s. And notably, he's never recorded a did not finish. So that's
Kansas
good.
Has been good to him.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. So I will say that unlike his teammate, Kyle Larson, I don't think Kyle will pull it off. I think Chase will take the win, ending all doubt that he'll advance to the next round and making last week relatively irrelevant. Do you have a sleeper pick at all for this week?
I would say Daniel Suarez. Just because he's in a Chevy. And he had a fast car last week at Darlington. I think he's had speed the last month and a half or so. And unlike his teammate Ross Chastain, he's been able to actually finish the races or finish near the front of the pack. So I would say Suarez would be a dark horse favorite.
All right. Well, I am going to ride with a Toyota
Ooh.
as my dark horse favorite. He hasn't won in a few weeks, but he did rattle him off when he got him. I'll go with Christopher Bell.
Like it.
I don't know why, but I like it.
Apparently Jeff Burton's championship pick.
Yes, he mentioned that to us.
Yeah.
Personally. No.
Yes. Yeah, we had lunch lately.
We had lunch with him.
We had lunch with Jeff Burton, yeah. And then dinner with Bob Pockris. It was great.
It was a great day. All right, and that'll do it for our show. Thank you again for choosing just to spend a little of your morning, afternoon, or evening with us. We always encourage you to check us out on social media at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Boom.
And as always, appreciate you allowing us to talk some ball with y'all.
Catch you on Monday.